Let's open our books up to page 280, please. Language of the Heart. I'm going to read first a letter Dr. Carl Jung wrote to Bill Wilson. This was in response to Bill's letter to him, which is printed on the pages preceding. There's some pretty interesting stuff in here, and then we're going to move on over to some comments that Bill made about this letter at the time of his 33rd AA anniversary in New York. This is from Carl Jung, the great psychiatrist, who was one of the three fathers of modern psychiatry. Jung and Adler and Freud were the three. Dear Mr. W., your letter has been very welcome indeed. I had no news from Roland H. anymore, and often wondered what had been his fate. That's Roland Hazard. And Roland had been a patient of Dr. Jung's for over a year. When he came back to the United States, he drank again. When he went back to see Dr. Jung, Jung told him that there was nothing more he could do for him. Roland's story is in the big book. It's scattered throughout the first 3 or 4 chapters of the big book. Our conversation, which he has adequately reported to you, was an aspect of which he did not know. The reason that I could not tell him everything was that in those days I had to be exceedingly careful of what I said. I had found out that I was misunderstood in every possible way. Thus I was very careful when I talked to Roland H. But what I really thought about was the result of many experiences with men of his kind. His craving for alcohol was the equivalent, on a low level, of the spiritual thirst of our being for wholeness, expressed in medieval language, the union with God. How could one formulate such an insight in a language that is not misunderstood in our days? The only right and legitimate way to such an experience is that it happens to you in reality, and it can only happen to you when you walk on a path which leads you to higher understanding. You might be led to this goal by an act of grace, or through a personal and honest contact with friends, or through a higher education of the mind beyond the confines of mere rationalism. I see from your letter that Roland H. has chosen the second way, which was, under the circumstances, obviously the best one. I'm strongly convinced that the evil principle prevailing in this world leads the unrecognized spiritual need into perdition, if it is not counteracted either by real religious insight or by the protective wall of human community. An ordinary man not protected by an action from above and isolated in society cannot resist the power of evil, which is called very aptly the devil. But the use of such words arouses so many mistakes that one can only keep aloof from them as much as possible. These are reasons why I could not give a full and sufficient explanation to Roland H., but I'm risking it with you. Could I conclude from your very decent and honest letter that you have acquired a point of view above the misleading platitudes one usually hears about alcoholism? You see, alcohol in Latin is spiritus, and you use the same word for the highest religious experience as well as the most depraving poison. The helpful formula, therefore, is spiritus contra spiritum. The spirit will conquer alcohol. Thank you again for your kind letter. I remain yours sincerely. Now, the main reason I want to read this is because of that Latin quote, those 3 Latin words, spiritus contra spiritum. The Spirit of God versus the spirits known as alcohol. Because that's what we have here. And we don't have anything else. You boil it all down, and we've got a program which designed specifically to allow each of us to get God's intervention, to get God strictly between us and booze, to get into His pocket and stay there. It's there that we are safe. Now, Bill commented on this letter. Let's go over on page 282 now. Just turn the page over. Middle of the page. You will recall Dr. Jung is one of the three first pioneers in the art of psychiatry. The thing that distinguished him from his colleagues, Freud and Adler, was the fact that he was spiritually animated. Something that was to make all the difference to each and every one of us now here, and will make the difference for all yet to come. Because, you see, Dr. Jung was able to take his human solution psychiatry and blend it with the spiritual solutions to come up with something that really worked. And in many respects, that's exactly what AA does. I never realized what a very great man in spiritual dimensions Carl Jung was until in 1961. I wrote him a very belated letter of gratitude for the part he played in originating our Society of Alcoholics Anonymous. This was the last year of Dr. Jung's life. He was old. Nevertheless, he sat down and wrote me a letter. It looks like he tapped it out on a typewriter with one finger. It is one of my most cherished possessions. Lois framed it, and it will always be with us. It hangs on the wall, by the way, of their house. We have to note very carefully that what Dr. Jung said in that letter, so obviously written in profound love and understanding, in the language of the heart, his insight into what was needed for recovery from alcoholism, an insight that came to me through Roland and Ebby at a crucial point of my own deterioration, meant everything for AA when it was still in embryo. His humble willingness to speak the truth, even when it meant disclosing the limitations of his own art, gives the measure of the man. And there aren't very many around like that, you know. The folks out there who make their living working with alcoholics and addicts and have gone to great lengths to gain their credentials and their diplomas and their licenses seldom are willing to try to blend what they know, call it their art, with the truth of the spiritual existence of mankind and the spiritual solution, which truly is the only thing that will work. There was another spiritually animated man, Dr. William D. Silkworth, whose contribution to AA paralleled Dr. Jung's. Unlike Jung, Dr. Silkworth was a man in an obscure position, but he was spiritually centered. He had to be. He declared to all comers, after 20 years of almost absolute defeat in trying to help alcoholics, that he did love alcoholics and wanted to go on working with and for them. Every alcoholic who came his way felt that love. A very few recovered. He thought I might recover. Then the day came when it was clear that I would not, that I could not. By this time, Dr. Silkworth had defined alcoholism as a sickness of the emotions, coupled with a sickness of the body, which he loosely described as a malady. These words of his are to be seen in the foreword of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, entitled The Doctor's Opinion. And over the intervening years, they have been incorporated into the consensus that is AA. As Jung had told Roland that his case was hopeless and that medicine and psychiatry could do nothing more for him, so Silkworth told Lois on that fateful day in the summer of 1934. I'm afraid that Bill will have to be committed. There is nothing that I can do for him or anything else that I know. These were words of great humility from a professional. They scared me into sobriety for 2 months, although I soon resumed my drinking. Remember, fear of the consequences of drinking did not keep us sober. But the message that Ebby had brought me from Dr. Jung and from the Oxford groups, and the sentence that Dr. Silkworth pronounced over me, continued to occupy my mind in every waking hour thereafter. I began to be very resentful. Here was Dr. Silkworth, who had defined alcoholism, the obsession that condemns you to drink against your will and true interest, even unto destruction, and the bodily sensitivity that guarantees madness and death if you drink at all. And here comes Dr. Jung via Roland Nevy, confirming that there's no way out known to the doctors. My God, science and the only God I had then had declared me hopeless. That's what we were talking about in the meeting tonight. This is that great dilemma, isn't it? And the newcomer has to be faced with it. You're an alcoholic. If you don't stop drinking, you'll die, but you can't stop drinking. But what then is the solution? But Ebby had also brought hope. Not much later, I was back in the hospital in Dr. Silkworth's care after what proved to be my last drink. Ebby came to visit me again. I asked him to repeat once more what he had said over my kitchen table in Brooklyn that first time he told me how he'd gotten sober. Well, he said, you know, you get honest with yourself, you make a self-survey. You talk it out with the other guy. You quit living alone and begin to get straight with the world around by making restitution. You try the kind of giving that demands no reward, either in approval, prestige, or money. And when you ask whatever higher power there is, even if it just be an experiment, to help you find the grace to be released from alcoholism. As Ebby put it, it was quite simple, quite matter of fact, and said with a smile, but this was it. So you see, that's where it all started. Pretty interesting stuff, isn't it? Well, this is where we share with each other. Who'd like to start? Anything that all of that triggers in your mind, anything you'd like to share with us, or any question you might want to ask. Kimmy.
Hi, I'm Kim from Alcohol. And to drink down the final time, I knew that was, I didn't feel like it was at that time. It felt like it really had a lot to do with God because I thought I was finished. I was tired. I relapsed a million times and I was tired. Where God talked to him was after I put it down and I had to live life in like terms, and I really didn't like the term. And I knew I didn't want to drink, and I knew, there was always a possibility because I know that was, my solution or my crutch for always. But I knew that, I was tired. And God came in because He is now, it's like I was hopeless in living life. It's like I didn't know how to live life, and I didn't like how I was living it, and I wasn't content. And no matter what I had or how things were or how perfect they were, I was not happy inside. And God has brought, coping for me. I mean, He's answered when nothing else is answered. He's answered when there are answers. For me, I just depended so much on Him since I've been sober. And the longer I get sober, the more I see how, when there are no answers, how He's lived in my life. And I'm just grateful God's come to me in sobriety. Because I thought, well, I'm tired of drinking it down, and I didn't really think of God that much, Even though I knew He was there, I realized that now He's He's the only one that can give me contentment, give me support. There are others, and through the rings and stuff, that He brings the people to me, or directs me where to go. He gives me all the directions, and there's things fall in place, and I'm going through a situation now where I have no answers. And, and this is the first time I just said, I'm not going to be all in my head and make all the answers and make rash decisions. I'm just going to leave it to God and just try every day to do the best I can to be in His, in His light. And just know that it will, whatever lesson I learn, whatever will eventually turn out the way it's supposed to be. So, I don't know, it's a wonderful feeling to feel like no matter what, things will be okay if I stay sober and stay in God's way.
Good. Thank you, Kim, for that. That's beautiful. Who's next? Marilyn.
I'm Marilyn, I'm an alcoholic.
I'm Marilyn.
Dr. Jung, talking about this devil thing, because I really feel, I really think that I know there's a higher power, there's a power greater than myself, which is God, because I wanted to keep drinking, but I really feel like there is other than me, a devil too, because some of these things don't seem like they're me, and it wants me to drink, and God wants me to stay sober. But I just want to say, what's the thing I really got out of the last meeting is to be vital. Faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish, constructive action. I was thinking how unselfish, constructive action was really the opposite of drinking. Drinking is selfish, destructive action. And I like the opposites, the superlatives with the God and the devil thing. I like superlatives. I mean, if there's a God, I don't know. We're not supposed to talk about religion, but it was brought up, so it just seems like there could be a force. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it's me. It's usually me, I know. But it just seems powerful sometimes and out of left field sometimes.
Well, if there is a devil, his name is fear.
Ah!
At least one of them.
Yeah, well, that definitely. Fear's bad. Because faith is God.
Fear is killer.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, because the opposite of fear is faith, and faith has to do with God, so it would have to do, fear would have to do with
the devil.
Satan. We spiritual
Fear is pride's hit man. Pride sends fear forth to kill him. Okay, and Tom.
My name is Tom. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Tom.
And I think one of the greatest myths of our century is that if we can't see it, it isn't. And science is so arrogant and proud of it that we can prove it, and if it's not provable, that it's not real. And yet they ask us to believe in electricity and atoms running around in a neutronic center, and because they theorize these things, and yet there's unproven miracles that happen each and every day that they can't prove, and yet are obvious to the human eye, including bodies that don't disintegrate and things like that. And they say they can't explain them, and yet science is still supposed to win. That the devil is real is as obvious as that the sun comes up. Anyone who says it's not so just needs to see the Hitlerians and all these people that have gone beyond any measure of human possible explanation, including bin Laden blowing up 6,000 people in one shot who never did a damn thing to him in the name of religion, his religion, him being the God. The concept, which I have a prison meeting, which is a couple psychiatrists that are quite are in charge of it, and they directly will not allow God in. And I said, well, then I can't be part of this. I said, you want people to get well, and you won't give them the one thing that will help them. I said, if these guys are all 90% of the guys that go into prison, in my experience, had alcohol problems. 90%. The other 10% were just bona fide nuts. And And to me, every one of them was possessed in one way or another, and not just the possession inside was their own marrying the evil that they saw. And I'm always, I don't remember the Flip Wilson, The Devil Made Me Do It. Well, this psychiatrist I know, you can't blame either God for your good or the devil for your bad. But the reality is, it's there. And to say it does not exist is to eliminate both powers, and to say it's all about you. And that's what we're trying to get away from, is that it's all about me and that I can do it. A good friend of mine has been trying for at least a year and a half, and I believe it, to crack the liquid of the devil, the elixir of the devil, because he tries and tries, and he still goes back, and he keeps trying. And I said, it'll happen. It'll happen, because what that says, the spirit will conquer the spirits. And I mean, Christ on earth spoke of the spirits, so they're real, they're a reality. But for me, I see it all the time in the people. What Jim referred to is really when we consent to fear, we consent that God is not all powerful. That's what we consent to. And and to consent that there, or to say, well, there's really no devils, is so ridiculous. That there's not evil in this world. I mean, anyone can see that, So, if there's evil in the world, then it doesn't have a tail and horns that we know of, but it's real, nonetheless. And electricity is real, but you don't see it. And for me, that whole thing about when I've seen the 12 steps in real, when I see people really get it, it's nothing you can touch, but you know it's happening. It's like you can tell all of a sudden there's that joy inside, and then nothing matters but their program. I mean, everything takes apart, like the young lady was saying over there, there's things she knows that she's struggling with, but God is, so it'll be okay. But, it still means also that we have these, if God is, then His opposite is not happy when we're happy with God. So obviously, if you're on the other team, He's going to hit you. And to say it's not so is like to deny deny what's real, what's obvious. So for me, I that's how I prepare, that things can happen wrong even to good people, because they do. And because I'm good doesn't mean bad things can't happen. But because I try to do the best I can, more good things will happen than that. And if they don't, God still is. So it's going to work out His way no matter what, even if I do hold my breath sometimes.
Thank you, Tom. Who's next?
My name's Mark, I'm an alcoholic. I know from a very young age I was trying to seek spirituality or to learn more about God. And some of the things that I did learn was that I had a freedom of choice. And I do believe, from what I've learned from the Bible, where it teaches that Satan was God's right-hand angel, who was the most beautiful, the most powerful, and who was jealous of God and got cast down on earth. And I know the times that I've tried to seek to be spiritual, then I find the more I go towards the right direction, I find that things come up in front of me to bring me right back down. And it's so easy for me to give in. And I do believe that fear is a huge force of evil. And I know I used alcohol and drugs to overcome fear. But when I did use alcohol and drugs to overcome fear, the problem I had was my mind was not working properly. I did not make good decisions. I would make bad choices and have a lot of bad consequences happen from those choices. And a lot of my actions were selfish. I pretty much used the world is my playground, and I wanted to be the director, where it says in the big book we're supposed to play our role as an actor and not try to be the director. I tried to be the director, and in turn, one thing that I did was the thing that I hate the most was I hurt the people that loved me the most. The people who cared for me the most were the ones that I hurt the most. And I was playing a good game, and I was doing a lot of wild and crazy things. You know, I never ran out of money, and I had a good time, but I created a lot of consequences, and I hurt a lot of people I care for. And for me, that causes a lot of guilt and shame. Generally, the only way I could deal with that guilt and shame is to continue to use alcohol and drugs to cover the pain. Today, I don't want to live that kind of life anymore. I want to live a healthy, spiritual life, and I don't want to do anything to hurt the people I care for the most. The hardest part for me has been to try to learn how to love and care for myself. Because of the things I've done in the past, my self-esteem has been reduced, and at times I just thought that I was not worth much. And I know for me, the only way I can get over my past and forgive myself is if I'm doing the right things today. If I do not go back and use my old behaviors, then I will be able to forgive myself of the past, and the people that I've hurt will forgive me too. But if I'm not correcting my behaviors today, then inside I feel guilty and shameful still. So if I'm not on a spiritual path, then I'm very unhappy inside. But, you know, I believe that God has to create the opposites of everything. The up, the down, the good, the bad, and we're here to experience life to the fullest, and we have a choice of free will, and He's there for us, waiting for us to choose the right choices. But it's easy to choose the wrong things. Generally, to make good decisions and to try to lead a spiritual life takes a lot of hard work, and it's something that I choose today to do, because it's worthwhile in the long run. I've never accomplished anything in my life in a short time that was easy, that was worth having. Anything I ever accomplished that was worth having took a lot of hard work. And I'm grateful for y'all being here and letting me share.
Thanks. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is you agree with Dr. Jung when he said, speaking of Roland H., that his craving for alcohol was the equivalent on a low level of the spiritual thirst of our being for wholeness, expressed in medieval language, the union with God.
Yeah, how true it is.
That's what you were saying. I thought I heard that. Thanks very much for that, Mark. Who's next, please?
Thanks, Michael, an alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
Time I was in diapers until very early, about 10, 11. I just remember being brought up in church. And it wasn't a matter of making me go, it was just accepted. That's what I did. And I had a spiritual awakening at a revival camp when I was about 9 years old. Really wasn't listening that much to what was being said. It just happened. And being a child, I just didn't question it. But I do remember just accepting it. And I remember it being the most wonderful, carefree time in my life. And circumstances in my life changed. Kind of started jockeying around a little bit, getting moved around a little bit, and church kind of fell out of the picture. And at my age, nobody made me go, so I just didn't go. And until I walked into these rooms, I had pretty much been disassociated from God. And all the things that I've done in all those years, good, the bad, the indifferent, the guilt, remorse that you were talking about, or that everybody knows. It's like when I got here, you told me that the only thing that was going to save me was God. And I just couldn't get over the feeling that I had turned my back for so long. And the shame that I felt. And I ran everybody in my life away. And so I had this fear of rejection to begin with. And it has made it very, very hard for me to let go sometimes. It's something I have to I struggle with it. I've never known that when I earnestly, and I know when it's real, it has never failed. But I think if the devil has a name for me, it's ego. I can do it. I want what I want when I want it. I don't have time to wait on God. It gets me every jackpot I can relate to in the last year. It's been a direct result of that. That and slacking on 10, 11, and 12. And consequently, it's made it very hard for me to get back. But I am back. That's good news. But, I don't know. It's just, I can remember how I felt then. Now, that's what I want to feel like again. However short it might have been, it was the most beautiful part of my life. Thank you.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry to double dip, but I'm gonna anyway. This reminded me of in the movie Clockwork Orange, where this guy was like this murderer. He was really evil, and he was in prison, and he would go to the library every day and read the Bible, and he would sit there with the biggest smile on his face reading the Bible, and everybody thought he was like being reformed. And they showed what he was thinking when he was reading the Bible, and so it showed Jesus being beaten by the centurions or whatever, and he would sit there and pretend he was one of the centurions beating Christ, and he would sit there with the most angelic face on, because he loved evil. The way people love God, he loved evil. So it reminded me of what you said about Roland Hazard, how he loved drinking. This is how in Clockwork Orange they kind of showed that. I will ever double this again.
Not too bad for a double dip.
I need to towel on the people you're looking for.
Right?
I'm Tom, alcoholic.
Hey, Tom.
And I don't remember you reading this, but I read it, and it says here that the Jung was more spiritually animated than Adler or Freud.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what does that mean?
Animated means active. That he was impelled by spiritual beliefs. That he acted upon spiritual beliefs. Animated infers action, not just subjective thoughts. And his actions spoke of his spiritual beliefs.
So Freud and Adler's minds were not really open.
No, they were strictly of the human solution school.
Okay.
Only Jung among the three had a spiritual basis to his psychiatric school.
And that helped. Yeah, that's.
No, it was a tremendous help to AA because he was able to blend the knowledge of the mind and the way the mind and emotions work with the solution, which is a spiritual solution.
Right. Good, thanks.
Roberta, would you like to share that?
I'm Roberta, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Hi, Bert.
And I've got an awful lot on my mind, and I shared it with you, and I'm finding that just keeping my mouth shut and listening is helping.
Good.
But I do remember I was also a psychology major in college and reading about Carl Jung. And we had certain people that we had a choice of writing a paper on. And in those days, I very much had God in my life. And even though in my college days I was partying, but I've been having a lot of flashes of some of the things that I had read, and I think it was also designed a different way for being taught in psychology too, as opposed to in a book like this.
Yeah.
But I just have a lot of things that I'm going through and a lot of changes I have to make in my life. And I take God with me, I pray, I meditate. But I think my fear and of course there's no God when there's fear. But my self-esteem, and just with all the things that have been going on in my living situation, has just brought me to a level where I don't know what to do anymore, where I doubt my next move, and I pray to God for the answer. I also think, though, that maybe I'm being a little too lazy and not making enough proper decisions, but I thought I was making all the right decisions, hanging in the situation that I was in. And I see what it's done to me, and I know I've got quite a few changes that I have to make in my life to get to where I was a couple of months ago. I'm terrified. I know I need to call my sponsor more often, because just journaling about it is not enough. I need to be able to talk about it and vent about it. And that question, have I kept something to myself that I should have discussed with another human being? It can't be just any human being. It's got to be somebody that knows me. And I've seen over the past few days things that I need to start doing and start changing. And I'll just be doing a lot of praying and meditating, and hopefully tomorrow morning. Too bad this is not New York City, where on Saturday night you could pick up the Sunday morning paper, and I could get to work on the want ads. But I'll be up early tomorrow, and I'll be starting to start the changes I need to start to make.
Thank you, Andrea. Anybody else like to share before we close the meeting? David, did you have anything you want to share with us?
Well, I'm David. I'm an alcoholic.
David.
And it's the first time I meet, and I'll be at this meeting, and I'll come back next week, and I'm just grateful to be sober today.
We're glad you're here, both of you. And I was going to say to Mike, why don't you commit yourself to come to this meeting every Saturday night? This is a dandy meeting. We get down to dirty here. No holds barred in this one.
That's what I need.
I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Christy.
Christine?
Christy.
Christine, would you like to share with us tonight?
I really, I'm Christy, I'm an alcoholic. I really enjoyed the reading, and I appreciated what everyone had to share. I'm going to be going away for 10 weeks for treatment, and so I'm a little anxious about that, a little nervous. But I'm looking forward to coming back to this meeting. I get a lot out of this meeting, and the one earlier too. I really enjoy them. So I'll be coming back.
Thank you so much for being here. God bless you, and we'll pray for you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Let's close the meeting. You gotta pay the rent, so put some money in the hat, will you? If not now, later. Now let's take care of Kimmy over there. Let this circle represent the unity of our fellowship. A moment of silence for those who are still suffering. And we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. And tell the kid to be quiet now.
Join us.
We don't allow him to say anything after we say amen. Thank you, Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Amen. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. See you next week. Not going to crypto.
So you're for sure going to do the, you're going to do the 1:30 next Saturday again? I like that one. A little more intimate.
You got to get this signed earlier.
There's lots of brains.
You got 2 plus 1 then.
Oh, that'll help.
You got lots of brains.
They probably don't even look at this anyway.
See ya.
Thank you.